So in these 5 verses, 13.8 to 13.12, around 20 qualities are described by Krishna. And these qualities are termed by Krishna as knowledge, which also implies that knowledge doesn't mean holding degrees. Knowledge doesn't mean just having titles. Knowledge means having qualities. So Krishna is talking about these qualities. Let's start reading one by one. First one, Krishna is telling about the first quality, amanitvam. Amanitvam, humility. Humility is the first quality which is required in spiritual life. As we also see in the Siksha Ashtakam of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, Tranatapi Sunichena, which tells about humility. And Prabhupada gives wonderful definition. One should not be anxious to have satisfaction of being honored by others. Every word is so much loaded with Prabhupada's realization. One should not be anxious. Being anxious means hankering after something. So one should not be anxious. To have satisfaction, that means we are searching our nourishment in being honored. But actual nourishment of soul is to serve. If soul is serving others, soul will be satisfied. But we are anxious to be satisfied to get honor from others. That is a awkward situation for soul, which is a unnatural situation for soul. Therefore, the humility becomes a very important aspect in our spiritual practice. So we should not hanker for deceptive things. Deceptive means, see, honor of this world is deceptive because it will make us more and more materially conscious. So therefore, whatever service we do, we should be not searching for honor. Like sometimes devotees say that, we should do menial service. You have heard this term, menial service? Like you should do some humble service. But service will be humble when we don't look for honor in that. Suppose you are throwing dustbin, in temple we have big dustbins. So some devotees are assigned, okay, you are in charge of dustbin in charge. It's a humble service. But suppose while throwing that dustbin away, you become proud. Look how humble I am. Look how menial service I am doing. Then that service is no longer humble. And suppose somebody is giving a lecture to 2,000 people, but his spirit is, no, I don't deserve this honor. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So then that lecture becomes a humble service. So it's not about the physical aspect of the service, but the mood in which it is rendered. So Krishna is telling about humility, and Prabhupada is telling we should not be anxious of satisfaction to be honored by others. Yeah, Amar Nitai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Babu. Dharma. Which is sometimes what happen, we don't want honor, but even we do hard work, we do some service, and and at the end we get the chastisement that this was wrong,
So
this is this
we,
we
we
are
don't
done.
want honor and we don't want chastisement either.
Yes, so we get disturbed that we had done too much. We thought that we'll get some appraisal instead of, and then we get the chastisement, then we get disturbed also too much.
At that time, we should think two things. First is, when we are chastised, that means Vaishnavas think right on us. You see, you don't chastise neighbors' children, you chastise your children. So, first aspect is, if the Vaishnavas are chastising us, that means they have accepted us as their own. Another aspect we should remember in this situation is that maybe previously or in previous life or maybe in this life, we have taken credit for things which we have not done. So today we are getting chastisement for the things which we have not done because that balance is important. So when we are chastised like that, we can remember these two things.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Ro.
So that is amanitvam. Second quality which Krishna is talking about, adhambitvam, pridelessness. See, one is humility, second is pridelessness. Now, what is pridelessness? Prabhupada is telling not to be anxious to be famous for one's religion or entering into a group, not actually following the principles and wanting to advertise as a religious mentor. See, one is humility. Humility is about things which you have, which you are doing, but you don't want credit. That is humility. But pride is more negative. See, pride in Vaishnav Siddhanta we call it dambha. Dambha means sometimes we become proud of things which we don't own also. Like we are not really spiritually advanced, but we want respect like advanced devotees. Or we are into the religious practice, as Prabhupada is quoting from Ramanujacharya and Baldev Vidyabhushan, that we want to practice religious activities to be famous. So here person is not actually at that level, but he is expecting respect. He is expecting uh, worship, adoration, distinction. So that is pride. But a real person in knowledge is prideless. So humility and prideless, they're very close to each other, but they're little difference. Humility means you have qualities, but you don't want credit. Pride means you don't have anything, you don't have qualities, then also you're expecting respect. So pridelessness means we don't practice spiritual life for getting respect. We practice spiritual life for becoming purified, serving Krishna, going back to Krishna. And third is ahimsa. Ahimsa, non-violence. Prabhupada writes, not to put others in distress. That is non-violence. It's not just about not killing or not destroying one's body, but unless one elevates people who are trapped in ignorance, one is violent. Because we have the knowledge, and if we are not helping others, that means violence. Suppose in the corona pandemic, suppose you have the vaccine, only you have vaccine, and you are seeing people are dying, but you are not sharing the method, the formula of vaccine with others. That means what? You are killing others. So violence means not preaching Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada told in his many lectures, not preaching Krishna consciousness is violence. So when a devotee is non-violent means he is trying his best to distribute real knowledge by which people can be saved. So tolerance. And then tolerance also means shanti. Shanti. Sorry, I'm talking about non-violence. And then fourth one is tolerance. Tolerance is told as shanti. Shanti means satisfied. In Hindi, we know this term, Shanti. He's peaceful. So he's not bothered by insult or honor. He's not affected by honor or disrespect. Both are same for him. Example is given of Prahlad Maharaj, where his father tried to kill him in so many ways, but Prahlad tolerated. So that is also one aspect of knowledge. And then fifth one is arjavam, simplicity. Prabhupada would often tell what is simplicity? Simplicity means without diplomacy. If we are diplomat, if we are crooked, we are not simple. So we should be so straightforward that you can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. That is simplicity. That means what? What is real truth? Real truth is Krishna. So real simplicity is Jare dekho tare kaho Krishna upadesh. Yes, there is social meaning of it, that one should be very straightforward and truthful, but there is a spiritual meaning to it also, that one can share about Krishna to everyone without diplomacy, without any personal benefit. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati would tell, Saralta hi Vaishnavata is one of the very famous quotes. Saralta hi Vaishnavata. Simplicity is Vaishnavism. Vaishnavism is simplicity. So Vaishnava means simple. Then Acharya Upasanam, sixth, accepting a spiritual master. Actually, not only accepting, Acharya Upasana means worshipping spiritual master. Upasana means worship. And how do we worship a spiritual master? By offering Guru Puja, by offering flowers, by offering fruits, by organizing big Vyas Puja festivals? No. Prabhupada says in his one bhajan, Prabhupada himself writes, Phale Phule Mahotsave Puja Nahi Hai, Vanir Sevak Jai Seit Puja. Prabhupada said, you don't worship spiritual master by flowers, fruits, or big festivals. You worship spiritual master by Vanir Sevak Jai, by following the instructions of the spiritual master. So when we follow the instructions of a spiritual master, then we get his blessings. And when we get blessings of spiritual masters, it becomes easier to follow the process of devotional service. Otherwise, following process of devotional service in Kali Yuga especially is impossible. But satisfaction of a self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. So therefore, Acharya Upasana, worshipping spiritual master. Seventh is cleanliness. Yeah, Sachi Maharani Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji,
Yeah.
I have a question. You just explained simplicity. So I was thinking simplicity in dressing and in appearance, but not when we think.
See, internal simplicity is more important than external simplicity. There were so many associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who externally looked very opulent, like Pundrik Vidyanidhi, Ramananda Rai, others. They looked as if they are materialistics only, but their consciousness was so pure. So internal simplicity is very important. See, the purpose of external simplicity is to facilitate internal simplicity. We dress simply with a simple clothes because we want to keep our consciousness simple. It's not that we are just running around, different kinds of clothes and foods and different things. So devotee leads a simple life, but the purpose of leading simple life is that his consciousness remains in Krishna. Not that externally we are very simple, but internally we are very complicated. We are very crooked. We present something else, we think something else, we speak something else. That is not simplicity. So yes, external simplicity has its own place where we lead a simple life. But more than that, it's important to develop the mood of simplicity. Okay?
Prabhuji, but like if you're saying our dressing, so our dressing affect us, like our consciousness.
It depends on the level of devotee. Generally, for new devotees, it does affect because we become more conscious of our clothing, our dress, our food, our different items. But for advanced devotee, it doesn't matter. For them, sthavar jangam dekhi na dekhi tar murti, sarvatra hoy tar ashtadevir surti. For them, it's all same. For them, you know, uh, wearing a golden dress or wearing a simple dhoti and kurta is same. For them, it's not a big deal. But for new devotees like Prakrit Bhakta who are still affected by material desires, if the opulence is right in front of them, they can be carried away. So for a new devotee, for a practicing devotee, for a for a Prakrit Bhakta, for a Kanishta Adhikari, it's better to be simple in life. It will help. Okay. Then next is cleanliness. This is again a very important aspect. Cleanliness is of two types, external and internal. A devotee keeps his body very clean by taking bath. For sannyasis, thrice a day. For grihasthas and brahmacharis, at least twice a day. And then internally, one thinks about Krishna and always chants his name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And the effect of chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is, it cleanses the heart. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So this cleanliness is also very important aspect. Then Sthirya. It's not that devotee is practicing all these principles sometimes. No. His steadiness. He's steady in his practice. He's determined to make progress in his spiritual life. Many times people take resolutions, but it doesn't last for long. Just for 1 day, 2 day, 5 days max. But devotee is steadiness, steady. How is it possible? How devotee is having that faith? That devotee gets faith by his regular sadhana. If a devotee is doing his sadhana nicely, he'll get more faith, he'll get more determination. And to practice sadhana, one needs determination. So they are interrelated. But somewhere it has to start. Devotee has to be steady. Dhruva Maharaj is a big example in this respect. Especially Narad Muni himself came and he challenged Dhruva Maharaj. Not challenged, but tried to deviate Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva was a 5-year-old boy, and Narad Muni told that, you are a child, don't take these offenses seriously, and you want to sit in the lap of your father, come, I'll take you, I'll make you sit in your lap of your father. But Dhruva said, no, I am not determined to get Narayan. If you want to help me, otherwise let me go. So steadiness, he was determined to make progress. And then Narad Muni told, okay, you go to Vrindavan and you chant this mantra and you'll get Narayan. So spiritual master helps the disciple further when he sees that this disciple is determined. The next is Atma Vinigraha. Atma Vinigraha means self-control. Devotee should be self-controlled. Otherwise, what will happen? One temptation and he will lose his spiritual advancement. Therefore, devotee has to make distinction. What is Anukul? What is Pratikul? In the 6 limbs of surrender, 6 limbs of Sharanagati, these 2 aspects are very important. Accepting what is favorable and rejecting what is unfavorable. Sometimes people ask this question like, Prabhuji, can we eat at night? Yes, why not? If you can rise early in the morning and attend Mangalarati. If somebody cannot rise early in the morning, he should not eat. He should regulate. Some people ask that, is eating sweet good or bad? Depends. After eating sweets, how you are becoming more Krishna conscious or less Krishna conscious. So anything in this world, like we were talking about, simplicity, wearing clothes, same concept. If it is detrimental to our spiritual progress, then it's unfavorable, we should reject it. If it is favorable, we should accept it. That is self-control. Indriyartheshu vairagya. And by that self-control, what happens? Renunciation of sense objects. Slowly, the devotee loses all taste for sense gratification. He starts to see the sense objects as obstacles in his Krishna consciousness. So he takes care of his body. It's not that he doesn't take care of his body, but he doesn't sacrifice his spiritual advancement because of the bodily demands. Next, anahankaraha, no false ego. What is false ego? False ego means, ahankar means, I am car. I am not driver, I am car. I am body. That is ahankar. That is false ego. I am mind. I am Indian. But realizing that no, I am servant of Krishna. That is true ego. So, absence of false ego means true ego. Then, janma mrityu jara vyadi dukha doshanudarshanam. We should see fault and misery in four things. Dukkha doshanudarshanam. Dukkha means misery. Dosha means fault. In what four things we should see this? Birth, old age, disease, and death. But what we do? We celebrate birthdays. Prabhuji, today is my birthday. What Krishna is telling here? Dukkha doshanudarshanam. We should see fault and misery in our birth, but we are celebrating our birthday. Of course, we celebrate appearance day of the pure devotees because they are not, their birth is not like us. They have come here to help the conditioned soul. If we have that confidence in ourselves that yes, we also came in this world to deliver other conditioned souls, then it's fine. But we came here because of our karma. And out of these four, which one is worst? Birth is the worst. Because from birth, it all starts. If there is no birth, then there is no disease, no old age, no death. But it all starts with birth. And we celebrate birthdays. But here Krishna is telling, Dukkha doshanu darshanam. We should see fault and misery in these four things. It's not a pessimistic view, but it's a reality. You have to call bad thing bad. You can't be so optimistic that you call a criminal as a saint. That is not optimism. So these four things have fault and misery, and we should realize it. Krishna is saying, Dukkha doshanu darshanam. Then next, anasakti. From who? Putra dara griha adi. One should be detached. From whom? Putra, children. Dara, wife. Griha, house. We should be detached. So what we should do? We should not take care of them? No, we should take care of them. But if there is a choice between Krishna and other responsibilities, then we should choose Krishna. Like when this choice will come, especially at the time of death. At the time of death, every living entity will have choice. Remember your wife, remember Krishna. We were joking one day that in India now, there are more female than male. The females are increasing and male less. More female children are taking birth. You know why? Because male, when they die, they think of their wife, and next life they become a girl. That is the reason. So you have two choices. One, remember your wife, or remember Krishna. So if our affection to Krishna is more, then naturally we'll remember Krishna. And another simpler way of being detached or being free from that risk, we should make our family Krishna conscious. See, if our family is Krishna conscious, then those relationships are no longer material. Whole family can sit down together morning and evening, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. See, if the whole family does Sankirtan together, if they take Krishna Prasad together, then they will help each other to remember Krishna. Suppose one of our family member will be on deathbed, what we will do? We'll remind him of Krishna. We'll do Sankirtan. We will read Bhagavad Gita. We'll play spiritual masters' lectures. So like that, the best way to do this, we can make our family Krishna conscious. Then next, Samachittatvam. One should be, Sama means he should be equipoised in in misery and happiness. Generally, in material world, if we attain desirable things, we become very happy. If we don't attain desirable things, we become unhappy. But a devotee knows whatever is coming in his life is by Krishna's mercy. So when one is very nicely established in his resolute to devotional service, then it doesn't matter what comes to his plate. Next, 16th. Ananya Bhakti. Mai Ananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharini. You can mark this word Avyabhicharini in your Bhagavad Gita. Avyabhicharini. See, Vyabhachar means prostitution. In Sanskrit, Vyabhachar means prostitution. Avyabhicharini means she is very chaste. Chaste lady is called Avyabhicharini. So how bhakti should be? Bhakti should be chaste. Now, what does that mean? Chaste lady means she only has one person in her life, that is her husband. No other contact. Similarly, when bhakti is chaste, when bhakti is avyabhicharini, that means what? No traces of karma, no jnana, no tapa, no yoga, nothing. Only the shelter of Krishna, exclusive shelter of Krishna. That is avyabhicharini. And that bhakti starts with Shravan and Kirtan, hearing and chanting. The 9 processes of bhakti, they come in Ananya Bhakti, Avyabhicharini Bhakti, pure devotional service. Then, next, aspiring to live in a solitary place. Now, generally devotee don't do that, but that means we don't want to mix with materialistic persons. That is the meaning of solitary place. Like when in Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, this pastime comes, when Daksha curses Lord Shiva. And what Daksha tells, that Lord Shiva will not get any part of sacrifices. In sacrifices, all demigods are given oblations, and Lord Shiva was also getting oblations in the sacrifice. But Daksha curses Lord Shiva that you will not get any partake in the sacrifice. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes in the commentary that it's good because now Lord Shiva doesn't have to sit with materialistic demigods. He can be alone now. So solitary place means not being with materialistic people. And the solution is we should surround ourselves with Krishna conscious devotees. Then next, detachment from general masses. Yeah, the same. We should not be mixing ourselves with materialistic people. Accepting the importance of self-realization. If we are accepting the importance of self-realization means we will not waste our time in things which are detrimental to our Krishna consciousness. Like Prabhupada giving example of sporting, cinema, social activities, etc. Then 20, philosophical search for absolute truth. If you're not wasting your time in unnecessary activities, then naturally you will utilize your time in philosophical search about absolute truth. That means we study scriptures. We try to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, which make our faith more and more resolute. So out of these 20, 18 are found in other spiritualists also, especially Gyanis. But these 2 are very, very exclusive to devotees. These 2. First is Mai Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharini, exclusive devotional service. This is not found in other yogis. Only Bhakti yogis has this. And second is Acharya Upasana, serving the spiritual master. A spiritual master should be a devotee, and when we serve such a pure devotee, then we get the mercy of Krishna. So this is the description of Jnana. So you remember Arjuna asks 6 questions. What is Kshetra, Kshetragya, Jnana, Geyam, Prakriti, Purusha? So Krishna already described about Kshetra and Kshetragya that we saw before. Then we saw about Jnana, knowledge. So we already saw that. Now in next section, Krishna is telling about Geyam, the object of knowledge. If somebody has achieved knowledge, what he should know actually? What is the destination of knowledge? What is the essence of knowledge? So in simple words, in English we say knowable. What is the object of knowledge? What is the knowable? So there are two objects. One is soul and one is super soul. So we'll see that in the further descriptions. Okay, Venudhari Prabhu, can you read translation for verse 13?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah.
I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal, Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world.
So now Krishna is talking about the soul, Brahman. But there is distinction between Brahman and Parabrahman. There is distinction between soul and super soul. So in next few verses, Krishna is telling about both soul and super soul, but he is making it very clear that soul is dependent on the super soul. Although the qualities are same, but soul is limited, soul is Anu, small, super soul is Vibhu, is unlimited. So that description has been given in this section, particular section of Geyam, the object of knowledge, from verse 13 to 18. So we'll understand these verses with help of this table. Distinction between super soul and living entity, the individual soul. Namra Sita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanvatana. Prabhu, in this 13th verse, can you just explain briefly about Vigyan Brahman and Anand Brahma?
Sorry?
The
What?
last paragraph, Vigyan Brahma and Anand Brahma.
Okay, let me read. The description of Brahman mentioned in this verse is related to individual soul. When the word Brahman is applied to living entity, it is to be understood that he is Vijnana Brahman as opposed to Anand Brahman. Yeah. You remember yesterday we discussed about 5 stages of realization? Annamaya, Pranamaya, then Jnanamaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. Right? So up to Jnanamaya, that was the level of body. You remember? And then there were 2 stages, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya. Right? So Vijnanamaya means when one realizes that he is soul. Anandamaya means when he realizes about the Supreme Lord and engage in his service. So therefore, soul is sometimes called as Vijnana Brahman, the level of Vijnanamaya understanding, the 4th stage. And super soul is called as Anandamaya Brahman, which is the stage of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all bliss. So therefore, they are called as Vijnana Brahma and Ananda Brahma. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. So here we are seeing the distinction between super soul and soul. Super soul, Krishna is talking in the 14th verse. Super soul has all pervading hands, legs, everywhere. That means what? He is present everywhere through his energies. But living being, he is not all pervading. He is all pervading in his kshetra. Like I am soul, I am all pervading in my body. If you pinch me here, I'll feel. If you pinch me here, I'll feel. But if you pinch Venudhari Prabhu, I'll not feel. Because I am limited to my kshetra. But Krishna, as super soul, he is all pervading. And super soul, because he is the source of all energies, He'd never become conditioned. But living entity is prone to be conditioned. Super soul can extend his hand without limit. That means he can extend his energies without limit, but living entity cannot. Super soul is having a special quality of omnipotence. That means he can do anything. He is all potent. Like in Brahma Samhita, it is described, Krishna can do any activity with any of his senses. Like he can eat with his eyes. He can hear from his mouth. He can he can see with his ears. That is omnipotence. And therefore, when we offer bhoga, Krishna accepts it. Although he is Golok eva nivasati akhilatma bhuto, he is staying in the spiritual world still. Through his energies, he can still accept the offering. Supreme Lord doesn't have material senses because we have seen how he is limitless. And that is only possible in a spiritual realm. Living entity also has spiritual senses, but now it is covered by matter. Living entity has forgotten the spiritual identity, whereas Supreme Lord cannot be covered by Maya, cannot be covered by matter. Then Supreme Lord is all-knowing, omniscient. He knows past, present, future, but living entity forgets under the influence of ignorance. We have seen this in 4th chapter also, where Arjuna asks Krishna, and when did you tell to Vivaswan? Then Krishna tells that yes, there was not a time you were there, I was there, all these kings were there, but you forgot, I never forget. So that is difference between Supreme Lord and living entity. Supreme Lord comes to this world with his own energy, Atma Mayaya. But we come to this world by force of our own karma. Supreme Lord is maintainer, witness, proprietor of everything in this world, all opulences. But we are not possessors, we are not proprietors, we are just servants of Krishna. So all this distinction has been given about Gayam in these verses. Then very important section comes, which is really important. We should understand this very attentively. In the next few verses, in the next 7 verses, Krishna is telling about difference between Prakriti and living entity, nature and living entity, soul. So Krishna has already described about super soul. He already described. He already discovered about soul. Now, how living entity got in trap of material nature, he is going to describe in the next few verses. So let us see that from verse number 20. So Chetan Prabhu, can you read text 20?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. They are transformations and the modes of matter or products of matter.
So both material nature and living entities are beginningless. Means what? They're eternal. Material nature is also eternal. Living entity is also eternal. Because material nature is energy of Krishna. It manifests and unmanifests, that is different thing. Material nature manifests, and then when Lord wants to wind it up, it unmanifests. That is different thing. But it is eternal because it is Krishna's energy. And living entities are also eternal. There is no doubt about it. But as per the transformations of material nature, there are many products of matter. These transformations are 3 modes. Text 21. Anupama Mataji, can you read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyment in this world.
Now let us understand who is the cause of happenings in this world. Of course, Krishna is the cause of all causes that we know. But if you're talking about a scene, a particular scene, whom we see exactly doing things. So here in this chart, you can see two divisions. First is Prakriti. See, material nature is the cause of all material elements. Like all material products, like body, senses, sense objects, the different authorities in the material nature, all these are coming from matter. So material nature is the cause of all these unconscious entities, non-living entities. Now, what is the cause of? What is caused by living entity? Now, living entity tries to enjoy this matter, and when he tries to enjoy this matter, he sometimes experience happiness, sometimes experience distress. So the conscious experience is caused by living entity. Is it clear? The matter, the substance is created by material nature, but the experience is caused by living entity. It's simple, like, you know, if you baked a cake, but there is nobody to taste it, is there any utility of that cake? There's no utility of that cake. When somebody tastes it, then he say, yeah, this is very nice cake. So that experience is caused by a living entity. But material nature is causing different elements of this world. Yeah, Bharat Krishna Prabhu. Please unmute.
Yeah. What is VCT and BVB?
VCT is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
Okay,
And
all right, okay.
BVB is Baldev Vidyabhushan.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you. All right.
Sorry for the shortcuts.
No, it's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is explanation by Baldev Vidyabhushan Vishwanath Chakravarti. They are explaining this distinction on verse 21, that how material nature is cause of all these unconscious products and living entity is cause of the experience. So therefore, living entity is called as main doer, because if there is elements, but there is no living entity, there is no use of those elements. So therefore, living entity is called as main doer. But the Prakriti is also cause of the unconscious entities. Okay. Now, how does living entity get trapped? Now, we understood the first section of Prakriti, the next section of living entity. But how they get trapped, Krishna is telling in the next verse. Sachidanand Prabhu, can you read text 22?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the free modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil amongst various species.
So what exactly is the problem? The association of living entity with Prakriti. Until living entity does not identify with Prakriti, with material nature, living entity is eternally happy. Material nature has no power to overpower living entity, because living entity is spiritual and material nature is material. A material thing cannot overpower a spiritual thing. But what happens with this poor soul is, that is us. What happens? We misidentify with this material nature. I belong to this material world. This is my body. This is my family. And this misidentification leads to different experiences of happiness and suffering. And we have discussed this example many times. Suppose we all are attending this Bhakti Shastri class and we hear a big noise of accident on a road just outside our house. We may go and see, oh yeah, nobody died, but there is little scratches on the cars. We will not be affected. But somebody tells, Baba, it is your car. Then, oh, my car. Then we'll go and we'll get affected. So it's because of our identification. So long we don't identify with this material nature, no suffering, no happiness. But because living entity associates, identifies, actually it's misidentifies with material nature, that whole process called avidya, ignorance. And that is the cause of happiness and suffering in the material nature. Yes, Namrasita Mataji.
Prabhu, can we understand that like living entity is the cause of material manifestation?
Living entity is the cause of?
Cause for material manifestation?
Not exactly. Lord is the cause of material manifestation. Living entity is the cause of his own body. See, we have to go back to Kshetra. When Krishna was describing the field of activity, living entity is responsible for his field of activity. Whereas Lord is responsible for whole field of activity, which is the whole material universe. So that is the difference.
But Prabhu, it is the desires of the living entity which makes the material manifestation happen. Otherwise,
Yeah, but we have to understand it's not the whole material manifestation. Like my desires can't affect others. My desires will affect my life. And those who will identify with my life, like related to me, then they will get affected. But I can't affect the whole material universe, right? So living entity is responsible for his field of activity. Everyone has his own field of activity. They are cause of their own bondage. But who is the ultimate cause? Ultimate cause is Krishna, because he created the material world. So from his desire, material universe is created. But then living entities, they are little Krishnas, na? They're little part and parcel of Krishna. So they also have their own free will. Then they desire, they are the cause of their own field of activity. Like that.
okay. So that means the material manifestation happens when Krishna wants and when he
Exactly.
desires, and the span of time is there. Like every time
Yes.
there is a.
Yes. And within that time, within that frame of material universe, then living entities are given their free will and their own field of activity. See, therefore, Krishna talked about Kshetra and Kshetragya before Purush and Prakriti. Now you understand? See, Arjuna asked first Purush and Prakriti, but Krishna didn't answer that first. Krishna answered first Kshetra and Kshetragya. Because until we don't understand that, understanding this will be difficult. So therefore, Krishna's presentation, although Arjuna's questions are, as per his inquisitiveness, but Krishna's answers are as per the, proper presentation, so that Arjun can understand it properly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Let's go to next verse. Yeah. Who will read? Usha Mataji, can you read text 23?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and the permitter, and who is known as the super soul.
So now Krishna is again reminding Arjun, it's not that only soul is doing everything. There is another transcendental enjoyer. Transcendental enjoyer means he doesn't get affected by material elements. That is super soul. And what is the activity of super soul? Verse 23. Just opening it. Just 1 minute. Yeah, can you see? Okay, I have to change the thing. Yeah. Verse 23. Upadrishta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. What is the activity of super soul? You can mark these two lines. Upadrishta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. Upadrishta means overseer. He is the witness. Anumanta, he gives permission. If he doesn't get permission, he doesn't give permission, then nothing happens. Bharta, he is the master. He is the ultimate proprietor. Bhokta, as he is master, he is enjoyer also. Maheshwara, he is the ultimate controller. Ishwara means controller. So the 5 attributes of Paramatma is given here. He is Upadrishta, witness. Second is Anumanta, he gives permission. Third, Bharta, he is the master. Fourth, Bhokta, he is the enjoyer. Fifth, Maheshwara, he is the controller. So these are the attributes of Paramatma. Okay, so again there is this distinction of Paramatma and Atma, that how Paramatma, the super soul, is the representation of the Supreme Lord in everyone's heart, whereas Atma, soul, is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Paramatma is not ordinary living entity like soul. Paramatma is present in every body and he is conscious of every body. But Atma, soul, is limited to his own body. And then we have also discussed the 5 main qualities of Paramatma, whereas Atma is just a limited enjoyer. He can only enjoy as per the will of Paramatma. Text 24. Who will read? Shrutidhar Prabhu, can you read text 24?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position.
So Krishna is now telling the result of getting this knowledge. See, if we understand how exactly material nature works, how living entity gets trapped, if we understand this whole process, then we are not expected to fall in that trap. So there will be no birth again. Therefore, the knowledge is very important. But if somebody cannot do that, then what is the way? Krishna is telling in next 2 verses. If somebody cannot just, by the virtue of knowledge, if somebody cannot get free of the clutches of material nature, then Krishna is telling, okay, for them, two verses Krishna is giving the alternative method. Moksharupi Prabhu, can you read text 25?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, pronounce. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires.
Yeah. Abhimanyu Sutta, yeah, 26 also, please read.
Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of the tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death.
So first of all, there are 2 categories of conditioned souls. One, who are not at all interested in a spiritual life. They will be atheists, agnostics, monists, etc. Forget about them. Now, second category is those who are faithful in a spiritual life. Krishna is talking about 3 categories. First is karma yogis, nishkam karma yogis. We already studied about them in the first 6 chapters. So nishkam karma yogis, if their attitude is perfect, they are serving for Krishna, not for themselves. Slowly, they will advance in Krishna consciousness. Second, Gyanis, those who are very attached to knowledge aspect. So they analyze 24 elements of the material nature and then 25th element, soul, and they slowly come to the super soul also. And then they come to the level of surrendering to super soul. So that is for Gyanis. And third is, which is the sure shortcut, that is introspective devotees. So they just hear from bona fide authorities, they believe in them, they start practicing Krishna consciousness, and they go back to Godhead. So like that, if somebody cannot just get rid of material nature at once, there are different ways. Either he can take to Nishkam Karma Yoga or to Jnana or to Bhakti. Yes, Namrasita Mataji.
Prabhu, in this same verse, last paragraph, last few lines, Hatha Yoga is Ashtanga Yoga, no?
Yes. Ashtanga.
And meditation is also a part of Ashtanga Yoga.
One limb one limb of Ashtanga Yoga is meditation.
So,
Dhyan,
Prabhu, it is
Dhyan, Dharan, Samadhi.
okay. So, Prabhu, here it is written, it is stated that there are some people who are pure in consciousness and who try to find out the super soul by meditation. And when they discover the super soul within themselves, they become transcendently situated. But then in the last two lines, it is written the Hatha Yoga system. And there are others who cultivate the Hatha Yoga system and who try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities. When meditation is a part of Hatha Yoga only, then Prabhupada is saying it is childish activity.
Yeah, it's childish because it's indirect. You see, we already discussed this in the 6th chapter, how difficult it is to practice Ashtanga Yoga and meditation. So, although their endeavor is sincere, but it's indirect process. Like mature person, what he will do? Will he take a long cut or shortcut? So therefore, it is their endeavors are called as childish. Whereas Krishna conscious devotees, they understand that there is no point in analyzing the matter and controlling your, all these 8 limbs, and then ultimately you have to surrender to the Supreme Lord. So let's start doing it from now. So therefore, devotees are called as mature. Another process called as childish. Okay. Even in Puranas, it is told that how Gyan and Vairagya are children of Bhakti. That way also they are childish. Because Bhakti is the mother of Gyan and Vairagya.
So that means Prabhupada is saying that meditation is also a childish activity, but he had mentioned that they become transcendently situated if they achieve that.
See, they all are transcendentalists. Nishkam Karma Yogi, Jnani, devotees, they all are transcendentalists. But some are on the lower level and devotees are on the higher level. Jnanis and karma Yogis, they are indirect methods. Devotees, a direct method. That is the difference. It's not that they are materialistics. Materialists are already separated on the first category, you see. But these three are, all three are transcendentalists.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So like that, Krishna has answered the 6 questions of Arjun. And after telling that, now Lord expands what he already spoke. So now in the next few verses, Krishna is just revising what he already spoke. He already, till 26th verse, he already answered the 6 questions of Arjun, which was the starting of this chapter. But now what he is going to do is, he is just revising what he already discussed. So we will also revise. We'll read verse by verse. So Kripalu Keshavi Mataji, can you read text 27?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. O chief of the Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and the non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field.
So now Krishna is revising. Whatever you see, what is that? It is just combination of Kshetra and Kshetragya. Kshetra means field of activity. Kshetragya means owner of that field of activity. That means what? Whatever you see, it is combination of matter and spirit. Body is what? Matter, and then spirit living inside. So Krishna is revising the concept of Kshetra and Kshetragya. Next, text 28. Keshav Priya Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Text 28. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees.
So, who is the real seer? Who is the real observer? One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul always. It's not that only super soul is existing. It's not that only soul is existing. In one body, soul is living and super soul is accompanying. So now Lord is describing Kshetragya also of 2 types, soul and super soul. So that also we studied. Krishna is revising it. Yes, Namarasita Mataji.
So in the last verse, the field of activities and the knower of the field here means the field of activities is the material nature and knower is the Krishna, right?
Both
Knower of the field.
applicable. If we talk about Krishna, then field will be whole material nature. If we're talking about soul, field will be body. So applicable to both. Okay. Like you see, if Krishna is saying whatever you see in this existence. So if you see the whole material creation, that means that field is whole material creation. And who is the Kshetragya? Super soul. But if you are only focusing on one person, suppose you are focusing on one body, then the Kshetra is that body. And who is the Kshetragya? Soul. So we can take that in both contexts.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, got it.
Okay. Sudevi Mataji, can you read text 29?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere, in every living being, does not degrade himself by his mind. Thus, he approaches the transcendental destination.
Yeah. So then, the person who is seeing super soul everywhere, he will not degrade his mind, means he will not succumb to material sense gratification. But he will think about going to the transcendental destination. That means vision of a devotee. Pratima Mataji, text 30.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees.
So this is also there, that actually soul is not performing directly. Soul is just misidentifying. But the body is performing the karma on the desire of the soul. So basically, a self-realized person has to see three things: matter, soul, super soul. If this understanding is clear, that means he will not get succumb to the clutches of material nature. If this understanding is not clear, then entanglement in the material nature. Abhimanyu Sutta Prabhu, text 31.
Yes, Prabhu. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception.
So what is this Brahman conception? It's not that, oh, this is elephant, this is tiger, this is human being, this is male, this is female. This is all distinction on the basis of body. But when one sees, no, all are spirit soul, and spirit soul is running this field of activities, different bodies. So then that is the level of Brahman realization of soul. Anisha Mataji, can you read text 32?
Those with a vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental.
Your voice. Okay. Diya Mataji, can you read?
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. And those with a vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled.
So what exactly we have to understand is summarized in this chart. What is knowledge? First of all, one who understands three things: body, soul, super soul. These three are different. Body is matter, material. Soul and super soul are spiritual, they're eternal. How one can get this knowledge? By association of self-realized spiritual master. What about those who are not having this knowledge? They will simply remain in ignorance, and they will consider their bodily activities as all in all. Text 33. Bhutwa Prabhu, can you read? Text 33.
The sky, due to its subtle nature, do not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body.
Krishna is giving example of sky. You see, sky is present everywhere. Does sky mix with water? Does sky mix with fire? Does sky mix with any impurity? No. Although sky is everywhere, but it doesn't get mixed with any material ingredient. In the same way, soul is present in the body, but soul doesn't get affected by the body. So soul misidentifies with body, that is different thing. But body cannot affect the soul. That is the difference between the spiritual nature of body, spiritual nature of soul, and material nature of body. Yeah, Namrasita Mataji.
So in the same verse, how we can understand this when it says the living entity, even though situated in varieties of body, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with his body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. How
Yeah, like sometimes people say that, look, in Bhagavad Gita, it is told that size of soul is 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair. So now we have so powerful microscopes. We can see the soul. Why can't we see the soul with microscope? No. Because matter cannot touch soul. That's what Krishna is telling in this verse. Matter cannot affect the soul. So with any powerful instrument, ultimately the instrument is material. So how can you touch? How can you understand the spiritual subject matter? So that is what Krishna is telling here, that soul will never be affected by body. It will never come in the influence of material nature, like that. Okay. Text 34, Bharat Krishna Prabhu, can you read? Please unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness.
So now Krishna told in previous verse that matter cannot affect the soul. Then how body is moving? Krishna is giving another example. Just like sun is situated in its own position. Sun is not touching earth. But with rays of sun, earth is getting benefit. Or everywhere, whole universe is getting benefit. In the same way, soul is situated in a spiritual position. But by the influence of consciousness, soul makes the dead body moving. So consciousness is the symptom of soul. Just like sun is situated in one place and benefits the whole universe, soul is situated in the region of heart and illuminates the whole body by consciousness. And this consciousness makes, like, hands are moving, legs are moving, head is moving, everything is moving. This is by the influence of consciousness. So Krishna is giving the distinction between body and soul in this verse. Then text 35. Who will read? Okay, let me see. Who didn't read? Rasamrit Prabhu. Please read text 35.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal.
So now Krishna is giving the Shruti Phal. Shruti Phal means the benefit of this knowledge. What is the benefit of this knowledge? If one understands the difference between body and soul and the super soul, then the process of liberation is certain. One can achieve the desired goal. So now revising the whole thing, what is knowledge? Knowledge means knowing three things: body, soul, super soul. What is body? Body is made of 24 gross elements, gross and subtle elements, material elements. Soul is spiritual spark, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. By the influence of soul, body works. But soul is still minute. Soul is part and parcel of the super soul, who is the Supreme. This is knowledge. How to gain this knowledge? There are two ways. First, by developing those qualities described in 8 to 12 verses, they are elements of knowledge. And second, hearing from bona fide spiritual master. When we hear from bona fide spiritual master, we get this knowledge, just like Arjun is hearing from Krishna. So like that, this chapter is a small chapter compared to the chapters we were reading so far. This chapter is a small chapter, but loaded with so much philosophy, because mind you, we are in Gyan Kand section of Bhagavad Gita. So it has to be loaded with knowledge. So all the chapters which are coming now are small chapters. Like next chapter is also 27 something verses, 15 chapter, 20 verses. They're small chapters, but they're loaded with a lot of philosophy. Yeah, Namrasita Mataji.
Prabhu, in the previous verse, 26th verse, there's one line. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age, no one needs to change his position. Position means
Yes.
one doesn't need to become a mendicant or become a sannyasi. Does
Yes,
that mean?
yes. Position means varnashram position. So for becoming a spiritualist, you don't need to change any varnashram position if you're taking shelter of bhakti.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sudevi Mataji.
Yeah. Hi, Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, since I have joined ISKCON, I have been reading Bhagavad Gita with other devotees. This chapter, nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness, has always been very difficult for me to understand. Even now, when you're explaining, like very little is getting in my brain.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's heavy.
You know what you need to understand? I'll revise again. Only three things. Body is material or spiritual?
Material.
Then spirit, soul is material or spiritual? Spiritual. Soul is supreme or minute?
It's minute.
Who is supreme? Who is supreme? Super soul. If you understood this much, you understood the whole chapter. This is only the meaning of this chapter. We understand the body, the soul, and super soul. Only these three aspects, if we have understood, this chapter is you understood the essence of this chapter. Okay.
Yeah, it's so much elaborate. So to get everything in my small brains,
yeah. Therefore, Krishna actually summarized the bhakti by 12th chapter. And then he said, okay, if you cannot surrender, then you break your head after 13th chapter. The Gyan Yoga is not for devotees. So you are a devotee of Lord. So it's natural that you will not be impressed by the subsequent chapters.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta
Jai.
Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai.
Jai.